What happens when the spotlight turns from admiration to accusation? Jessa Duggar, once seen as the golden daughter of the Duggar family, is now facing a wave of criticism that's not just shocking, it's heartbreaking. Social media is on fire, and the emotional toll is becoming impossible to ignore. From mom-shaming to invasive speculation about her personal struggles, the backlash has grown louder and darker. In the last few weeks, Jessa Duggar has found herself at the center of a storm. What started as a few harsh comments online has now erupted into widespread backlash, touching everything from her parenting choices to how she presents herself in public. The once beloved 19 kids and counting star is now facing a level of scrutiny that's forcing fans and critics alike to ask, what is really going on with Jessa Duggar? Is she simply misunderstood in a hypercritical world? Or is there more behind her recent choices than meets the eye? There's growing speculation that something deeper is unraveling behind the scenes, concerns about her emotional well-being, the pressures of raising her growing family, and even possible rifts within the Duggar clan. And as whispers of tension between Jessa and other family members continue to swirl, fans are asking, has the pressure of fame, faith, and family finally become too much? Stay with us, because what we uncover next may change the way you see Jessa Duggar forever. The latest firestorm surrounding Jessa Duggar Seewald ignited from what seemed like a harmless social media update. In a recent Instagram post, Jessa shared a few curated photos of her family enjoying a quiet moment at home. One image featured her daughter, Evelyn, playing barefoot in the backyard with minimal supervision, while another showed the family gathered around a modest meal. It should have been a sweet glimpse into their daily life, but the reaction was anything but kind. Within hours, the comment section exploded with backlash. Some fans expressed concern, while others outright accused Jessa of neglect. Comments like, "Is that safe for Evelyn?" and "Why isn't she wearing shoes?" popped up repeatedly. Others took it further, questioning Jessa's decisions as a mother. "She's too busy filming content to care for her kids properly," one user wrote. Another criticized, "Why does everything look so minimal? Are the kids getting proper meals?" What's clear is that this backlash isn't just about a photo. It's the culmination of growing tension between Jessa and the public. Many fans are viewing her actions through a much harsher lens, and it's no coincidence that this is happening within the broader context of the Duggar family's declining public image. With scandals, documentaries, and public feuds still fresh in everyone's minds, every move a Duggar makes is automatically seen as suspect, even if it's as simple as a family photo. For Jessa, the scrutiny is especially intense. As one of the more public-facing Duggar children, she's walked a delicate line between defending her upbringing and distancing herself from the toxicity that's been revealed over time. Her silence on key issues, like her brother Josh's crimes, the IBLP documentary Shiny Happy People, and the changing family dynamics, has caused many to label her complicit. Others see her silence as a sign of internal conflict, trapped between loyalty and self-preservation. And unfortunately, Evelyn has become an unintended target in the crossfire. Several comments criticized Jessa for Evelyn's perceived lack of social development, clothing choices, and even her health. Rumors have circulated about Evelyn looking too thin in recent photos or appearing withdrawn in videos, sparking speculation about whether Jessa is providing proper care. While these accusations are speculative and lack any real evidence, the emotional weight they carry is huge. Some fans worry genuinely. Others seem quick to weaponize concern as a form of moral judgment. It's a heartbreaking twist. What should be private moments of childhood joy are now dissected, debated, and used as ammunition in a much larger battle. For Jessa, every parenting choice becomes a headline. For Evelyn, her mere presence online makes her a target. This is more than just internet drama. It's a reflection of the ever-complicated, increasingly fragile relationship between the Duggars and the world watching them. Growing up in the Duggar household wasn't just about modesty, faith, and structure. It was about doing all of that in front of millions of people. For Jessa Duggar, the pressure to uphold an image of near perfection started early. From a young age, she wasn't just another daughter in a big, ultra-conservative family. She was a public figure. Audiences saw her as the well-spoken, polished, obedient Duggar girl who helped raise her siblings and followed every rule without question. But behind the scenes, that public image came at a heavy cost. As fans continued to watch the family evolve, Jessa began transitioning into adulthood, with the world still watching. When she married Ben Seewald in 2014, viewers hoped to see her embrace a life of blissful domesticity. But reality is never that simple. While still clinging to many of the Duggar family's values, Jessa started carving out her own space as a wife and mother. Her home was less rigid, her social media posts a bit more relaxed. And yet, the more she showed of herself, the more judgment she invited. The conflict between tradition and modern parenting became more apparent with every child she welcomed. Some applauded her for being more open-minded than her parents, like choosing a hospital birth instead of a home one, or posting makeup tutorials on YouTube, but others criticized her for not doing enough to break free from the Duggar mold. It's as if Jessa couldn't win. If she held on to tradition, she was labeled brainwashed. If she tried to modernize, she was accused of hypocrisy. This impossible balancing act has led to what many believe is an intense emotional burden. While smiling in family photos and celebrating milestones publicly, Jessa may be struggling with the weight of never being allowed to just be herself. She's expected to be the perfect mom, the perfect wife, the perfect Duggar, and simultaneously, the perfect exception to all those labels. In recent years, especially after opening up about her miscarriage and mental health challenges, it's clear that Jessa is fighting to maintain some sense of personal identity. But for someone raised to keep appearances flawless, that vulnerability doesn't always feel safe. The emotional toll of performing perfection while healing privately can't be overstated. And with every new wave of online backlash, the message seems to be, you're not doing it right. Whether it's her parenting style, her home decor, or her silence on family controversies, Jessa remains under the microscope of a public who expects answers and perfection from someone still figuring it all out. When Jessa Duggar opened up about her heartbreaking miscarriage in early 2023, it wasn't just a personal tragedy, it became a public event. Instead of being allowed to grieve privately, she faced a storm of reactions online. While many fans expressed deep sympathy and support, others were shockingly quick to judge. Some questioned the terminology she used, calling it a DNC procedure, sparking debates over her stance on reproductive health. The compassion she may have expected from the public was met with suspicion by certain critics who seemed more interested in policing her language than recognizing her pain. It was a deeply vulnerable moment, and yet, critics online minimized it, reducing her experience to a controversy rather than a genuine loss. This lack of empathy isn't new for Jessa. Throughout her life in the spotlight, her emotions have often been interpreted through a lens of skepticism. If she shows sadness, she's accused of seeking attention. If she stays quiet, she's criticized for being cold or robotic. The constant pressure to appear perfectly composed has left little space for raw, human vulnerability. This isn't just about public perception. It's rooted in the Duggar family's culture itself. Within their ultra-conservative Christian framework, especially as portrayed on 19 Kids and Counting, emotions like grief, frustration, or even doubt are rarely given a voice. The unspoken motto seems to be, smile, trust God, and keep going. Suffering in silence is almost treated like a badge of honor. But what happens when that silence becomes suffocating? For Jessa, there's an internal battle playing out behind the scenes. Her carefully curated Instagram photos, sweet family moments, matching outfits, and cheerful captions tell only part of the story. Because beneath that polished exterior, there are cracks. Cracks shaped by loss, by judgment, and by years of internalizing the belief that true faith means hiding your pain. Is it possible that Jessa's silence isn't peace, but a shield? Is her constant composure a survival strategy, not serenity? Fans have started to notice that her once frequent updates have slowed, her content more restrained. Even in her videos, there's a quiet heaviness, a subtle tiredness behind her eyes that hasn't gone unnoticed by viewers who followed her journey for years. What we're seeing may be the effects of compounded emotional labor. The weight of grief not fully expressed. The heartbreak of being misunderstood. The pressure to represent a public image of faith and joy when your private world feels anything but joyful. Jessa has become a symbol of poise. But at what cost? As the world continues to debate her every move, the question lingers: how much pain has she buried beneath the surface just to survive? As Jessa Duggar continues to weather public scrutiny, many are asking, where's her family in all of this? The Duggars have always presented a united front, rooted in their faith and a family-first image. But when the cameras are off and the controversy starts swirling, the silence from those closest to her becomes deafening. Jim, Bob, and Michelle Duggar, once so vocal about their children's lives and choices, have remained notably quiet as Jessa faces growing criticism. Whether it's backlash over Evelyn's upbringing, questions about Jessa's emotional well-being, or rumors about struggles behind closed doors, her parents have not publicly stepped in. For a couple that once shaped their family's image around moral leadership and protective parenting, their silence is raising eyebrows. Some speculate this lack of response is intentional. Jim Bob has long been accused of controlling the family narrative, carefully deciding what is shared and what is buried. Could this be yet another case of managing appearances? Or worse, distancing themselves from one of their own in her time of need to avoid further public backlash? And what about Jessa's siblings? With such a large family, you'd expect at least a few public signs of support. Yet, many of her brothers and sisters are wrapped up in their own challenges. Jill Duggar, for instance, has taken a step back from the family entirely, publicly criticizing Jim Bob's leadership in her memoir. Jinger has distanced herself through a rebranding rooted in faith deconstruction. And others, like Joanna and Jana, are either silent or selectively supportive, often appearing more neutral than loyal. It's not that her siblings don't care, but the Duggar family is fractured in more ways than one. Each child has tried, in their own way, to separate from the weight of their upbringing. And for some, aligning publicly with Jessa could invite the very judgment they're working to avoid themselves. This is the painful paradox of being a Duggar. On the surface, there's access to fame, media deals, and a built-in support system of 18 siblings. But underneath that, there's an unspoken rule: toe the line, or face the consequences alone. When someone steps out of the tightly controlled narrative, whether by sharing too much emotion, making non-traditional choices, or simply showing vulnerability, the response can be chilling. Not with open arms, but with quiet disapproval, or worst, abandonment. For Jessa, who has long been seen as one of the golden Duggars who followed the rules, her current struggle might be more isolating than we realize. Because once the public starts to question her, and her family stays silent, she's left to either defend herself or suffer in silence. And the silence is growing louder by the day. As the news surrounding Jessa Duggar's heartbreaking loss continues to ripple across the internet, the fan reactions have been nothing short of explosive and incredibly divided. Social media platforms like Reddit, Instagram, and YouTube have become battlegrounds, with users voicing everything from heartfelt sympathy to sharp criticism. One Reddit user wrote, "I feel terrible for Jessa, but why does she always act like nothing's wrong? It feels so performative." Meanwhile, another countered, "Let her grieve in peace. Just because she's not posting about it doesn't mean she's not suffering." Screenshots from Instagram comments show a similar split. Some fans rally behind her, praising her strength and calm demeanor. One follower commented, "She's probably just trying to stay strong for her kids. We don't know what she's going through behind closed doors." But others are far more skeptical, accusing her of using silence as a shield to avoid accountability or tough questions. She wants sympathy but won't address the real issues. How about the toxic culture she promotes? Wrote one disappointed fan. This speaks to a much deeper and ongoing tension in the Duggar fandom, the collision between public expectation and private grief. As a reality TV star raised in front of millions, Jessa has always had her life on display. But when it comes to pain, especially the devastating kind that comes with losing a child, fans sometimes forget that she's a human being, not a character for entertainment. People demand statements, updates, and emotional transparency, even when the person at the center of the storm may barely be holding it together. What's more troubling is the obvious double standard in how different Duggar sisters are treated. When Jill Duggar opens up about her pain or struggles, many fans view it as brave. When Jinger shares her emotional or spiritual journey, it's celebrated as growth. Even Joanna, who has faced her own tragedies, often receives compassion. But Jessa? For some reason, her stoicism and restraint are read by critics as coldness or manipulation. Why the disconnect? Part of it may stem from her continued alignment, real or perceived, with Jim, Bob, and Michelle's strict ideology. Unlike Jill, who broke away publicly, or Jinger, who softened her public stance, Jessa still walks the line between loyalty to the family and carving out her own space. That balancing act makes her a target for those who view her as complicit in a larger system they now reject. Despite all this, Jessa has chosen not to engage. She hasn't clapped back, hasn't posted cryptic stories, and hasn't gone live to defend herself. Instead, she's maintained a quiet presence, posting pictures of her kids, sharing occasional faith-based reflections, and carrying on as normally as possible.
Some see that as strength.
Others say it's avoidance. But either way, her silence is speaking volumes. The internet is split, and Jessa Duggar is at the center of a storm that shows no signs of settling.
So, what happens now?
That's the question everyone's asking as Jessa Duggar continues to face public backlash, yet remains silent. The longer she holds back, the more speculation brews. Will she finally break her silence, or continue walking the fine line of public grace and private pain? For Jessa, speaking out wouldn't just be a personal decision, it would be a massive risk. Any move to challenge or even gently critique the Duggar legacy could put her at odds with the family's tight-knit image and Jim Bob's controlling narrative. We've seen what happens when Duggars step out of line. Just look at Jill and Derek. Telling her truth might come at the cost of relationships, financial support, or even her place in the family dynamic. But staying silent has its own price. The emotional toll of constantly being scrutinized, while trying to raise a young family, grieve personal losses, and carry the weight of an image she may no longer fully relate to, is undeniable. This very moment could be a crossroads for Jessa. Is she ready to take control of her own story? Or will she, once again, keep the peace at the expense of her voice? Some fans are already wondering if we're on the verge of another big reveal, a documentary follow-up, maybe even a personal tell-all. After all, Jill's public step into the spotlight opened doors. Jessa's silence, in contrast, is starting to feel louder by the day. Could she be preparing something behind the scenes? Is a Jessa Speaks moment on the horizon? For now, we can only watch and wait. But if Jessa does decide to speak, whether through a YouTube video, a joint interview, or even a book, it could shift everything. Not just for her, but for how the Duggar narrative continues to unfold in the public eye. As we wrap up this emotional journey, it's impossible to ignore the intense pressure Jessa Duggar faces, not just from the spotlight, but from the people watching her every move. From online backlash over her parenting choices to whispers about her silence following personal loss, Jessa is living in a world where every smile is analyzed and every absence is questioned. We've seen the strain of upholding a carefully curated image while silently carrying the weight of grief, motherhood, and expectations. Whether you agree with her decisions or not, the truth remains. Behind the headlines is a woman, one who's navigating private heartbreak in a very public arena. Let this be a reminder that grief doesn't always come with a statement, and healing doesn't always look the way people expect. Jessa may not always speak out, but her silence doesn't mean she's unaffected. Hello, lovely viewers, welcome to my channel. I am Christina. Hope your day is so well. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.